Google Stadia had an AMA recently where it came out and bravely, courageously said, we are not a Netflix for games. So Google Stadia is the game streaming service that Google is coming out with. It requires the use of a Chromecast and a special controller, a Google Stadia controller. And they are promising that it will be offering 4K HDR streaming, 5.1 sound, exclusive discounts. This is if you do the Pro version. Pro gets 4K HDR streaming, 5.1 sound, exclusive discounts, and access to some free games. One free game a month, thereabouts. Destiny 2 is what it's starting. But people have had some concerns about Stadia since it came out. One is the absolute huge amount of bandwidth that this service is going to use. They were talking about how it would burn through terabytes within a couple of days. So people started to talk about it. And one of the things that people brought up first in this AMA, not even so much the download speeds, but Google has a bad history of releasing products and then just leaving them to die.
Let's see, Google Plus, that crashed and burned almost immediately. They cut that off. What else we got here?
So you've got Chromecast audio, removed YouTube annotations, abandoned Louisville, Kentucky's fiber installation, dropped IoT support from Android Things, gutted its laptop and tablet division, shut down Google Allo, closed its Spotlight Stories VR studio, stopped accepting new users for the Google URL shortener, shut down IFTT support, and ended both Google Plus and Google Inbox.
Okay.
This is from the extremetech.com article on the AMA. There's a Google Cemetery that lists 155 projects that Google has killed, as well as some statistics on its behavior. I think this is something that people, or maybe people have, but I didn't notice, haven't really focused on with Stadia, that I think is definitely worth looking at now that it's put in front of me. If this comes out and it doesn't do very well, what's the likelihood of Google sticking around to support this? They say they have to, or they say they will. They mention in this article that essentially this is just how like music and movies move to a digital streaming medium, and they're trying to say that this is just natural progression. I mean, it almost sounds like they're saying it will work. It has no chance of failing because this is where it needs to go. But they're not the same. Games, movies, and music are not the same.
And it's not Netflix for games because you have to buy games still.
Right, exactly.
So it's $10 per month for the regular one. And the controller is $69.
Yes.
And you have to have that controller.
$79 controller, a $70 controller that you have to have.
And it's just a generic same controller that you can get anywhere else, but it's
and
a
then
Google
a Chromecast. One. And the Chromecast is $70, so that's $140. And then
That's not built into some TVs, the Chromecast?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, if it isn't,
or something.
If it is, I'm just going off of what they say you need.
Okay, so that's $150 about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me see what TVs have it built in. Some have it built in. Some TVs do have it built in. Okay. Android TVs. Made by Sony, Philips, and Sharp, come with Chromecast built in. Okay. So some TVs have, or if they're Android TVs, I think the one I have is an Android TV.
Okay.
So that'll have that. So you're set there at least. But you still got to buy a $70 controller.
Yes. So
okay.
that's your entry. That's your entry level to buying into the Stadia system. They still want you to have something you need to buy, obviously, to be able to use their service.
They want money back from the start, and the markup on those controllers is insane.
Sure.
For a $70 controller, the markup is probably like 300%. You want to say? So the one thing that's interesting and we really haven't talked about Google Stadia that much before. The reason that this is different than the Xbox Gold or PlayStation, whatever else, is that with other services, when you buy a game, you can download it. You download the game. You're not downloading games with this. They're all in the cloud.
Right.
So the amount of bandwidth can be exponential. I don't know how much bandwidth is being used by this stuff, but when you download something from PlayStation, from their store, that's all the bandwidth you need for that game. Obviously, versus getting an update. If I download Red Dead 4, that's it. It doesn't have to download or be constantly chewing up data as I play, just to play, that experience versus streaming it. You're streaming the games here.
Right. That's
different. So when you take data plans into account, does your area have a data plan that's strong enough to support this? And is there a cap on your bandwidth?
Well, it doesn't matter because Google had the balls to come out and say this during the AMA. Google thinks ISPs will raise data caps to allow services like Stadia to function without eating all of your bandwidth.
They think they will.
There will be some unspecified tools and services for bandwidth management. Doronichev writes, there's a lot of great ISPs offering plans with hundreds of megabytes per second or even gigabits in no caps. And then the guy goes on to say, which is really cute considering roughly 40% of the country, including myself, have access to exactly one ISP.
I have fiber optic and I have a data cap. It's not unlimited. They don't want you chewing that up. There's no incentive for Cox Cable or AT&T. That's two of our local ones, Ian. We have a little bit of choice for that depending on where you live. I have a choice of those two, maybe a third. There's no incentive for an ISP, internet service provider, to have an unlimited cap. Why would they do that? That's money. That's money to them.
Sure.
How would Google incentivize them to have a cap? You know what I mean? Like, all you need is like the major metropolitan areas to not have an unlimited bandwidth. That's first of all, that's cheap enough, because the cost of fiber optic unlimited, which would probably be the best thing, even fiber optic limited, I think I pay $100 a month plus just for internet. Mm-hmm. Not everyone can afford that to begin with. So a lot of people have, like, the $20, $40 plans that are good enough for most things. So there's a lot of obstacles in the way before you can even have this viable for a lot of people to even think about, before you even get down to the value proposition of, will this be worth it, where I pay $10 a month and I still, and for whatever, is that for one or two free games or some free games at launch, and I still have to buy the most popular games probably that are coming out.
Yeah, it's a free game. It's a free game a month. So it started its Destiny 2. And we still haven't seen how well it works, and Google throughout this entire AMA was unwilling to give a minimum amount of time that they would support it, so they won't even say we guarantee its support for a year.
So can we say this is dead in the water?
I feel like it's dead in the water.
The Apple...
I can't see how anyone would... I don't know where the appeal is to anyone. Usually with most bad ideas, I can see the appeal somewhere. I don't see the appeal here.
Even the Apple one offers more than this. The Apple Arcade one's going to.
The Apple one offers download, so it's barely similar. Once you add download into it, it's whatever.
But that's better, at least.
That's what I'm saying. Once you add download into it, then it's a completely different beast. This is ridiculous. So,
the market's not big enough to support, three different major gaming companies, and now you have two major streaming / whatever subscription gaming services on top of that. It's just too much. Honestly, the Apple one, you have a lot of equity built up just from people that like Apple. Sure. That will say, oh, I can play on my whatever Apple TV, and also I can play them on my phone and on my tablet. So there's an ecosystem built up for Apple users.
People won't have to go out looking for the Apple thing. If you have an iPhone, which lots of people do and lots of people continue to buy, Apple's going to find a way to introduce them to their subscription service, and it's going to come to the customers are going to come to them.
Yeah, and plus
this is something you have to seek out.
And plus it has the mobile advantage where, I can play some mobile games as well. And that Google's not offering that from what I can see.
And I'm still just trying to see why they think this market needs to be here. You don't own the games. You pay monthly for one free game. You still have to buy the games, even though you don't own them. There's no guarantee that it's going to play smoothly or cleanly. You need internet access to play any of these games. I don't see one single thing about Google Stadia. I mean, if I'm missing something, please point it out to me. I mean, that legitimately, what is supposed to be the hook?
You're missing something that's bad. That if I pay $60 for a game that I have to stream, what happens when the servers go down?
Well, I feel like we just all assume we had already.
But I mean, like, let's explicitly say that. We're not even worried about the games that you lose the free games, whatever. I paid. Let's just say I bought 4 games for $240 total over a couple years.
Google decides this is a bad idea and they pull the plug. Than a year.
How do I get a credit back for those games?
They did not answer any of that. that was asked, but they did not answer.
What a disaster. I'm glad we waited to talk about this. Now we have more and more of the details, and it spells disaster, as Scott Steiner would say, when you do the math.
Yes, when you do the math,
It's,
it spells
it has a
disaster.
33.1% chance of succeeding, but I got a 66% chance of winning because I'm a genetic freak. All right, so Google Stadia. When is this going to launch again? Is this later this year? When is this thing launching? Do we care at this point?
No.
We don't care.